It's Clark and Perry on the case. Da-na-na-na. Clark and Perry.
Do what it takes.
Da-na-na-na. Clark and Perry. Investigate.
The activities and interests of local artists in the Windy City's finest throughout both Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, Alberta. Available on TELUS, Optic TV, On Demand, VidFlex, YouTube, and more for limited time only. Terms and conditions apply.
Da-na-na-na.
Welcome to the Windy City's finest. I'm Clark, he's Perry, and we're joined once again by Theresa Eisenbarth. Why don't you introduce yourself just really briefly?
Hey, my name is Theresa. I'm born and raised in Medicine Hat, Alberta, Canada, and I am a full-time professional artist here, and I've been doing so for about 11 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so where would you first describe, where did your artistic story begin?
You know, I thought about that because I had to do a presentation to a group recently, and I thought if they asked me that, I better have an answer for that.
Yeah.
And I guess when we grew up I grew up in the historic area of Medicine Hat, the flats and the neighborhoods and stuff down there, kind of where Medicine Hat began. And when we lived in this old, big, rickety house, we had these weird pink and like that heritage green on the walls, which we hated, and they weren't in very good shape. No. I think they were plaster, actually.
Right.
And so when I was little, I remember drawing pictures all the time, and my mom would cover the whole wall with everything that we did at school.
That's really neat. I had a great aunt and uncle that did something similar with their kids as well too.
So before interior decorating was really a thing,
right? You had the doodle room, basically.
Yeah, the doodle room. So that's kind of where I think my love of drawing and expressing myself and just that meditative practice of doing the art practice came into being. And I've just always done some form of art my whole life.
Excellent. That's amazing. So like throughout your whole experience in 11 years of doing acrylic painting as well too, what would you consider your greatest achievement?
Well, I think just as like where I am right now in terms of my career, it's a hard gig being an artist. So really I would say I'm still only an emerging artist, but just everything I've learned and the projects, I've done so many great projects, like the one that we saw in the kitchen with the beer can, and I did a project for Cleo's with t-shirts, and there's just so many opportunities out there if you look. But being an artist, you have to create your own opportunities. So I think that the growth of that is probably the thing that I think about the most.
Yeah. Where would you find that balance most of creating your own opportunities versus just finding them?
I don't know. It's kind of divine timing how they fall in my lap. Like I'll get a phone call and say, somebody's looking for, well, like you guys, somebody's looking for somebody to do a live stream. And, you know, and I've done something similar, not exactly the same, but I've done something to the effect of this before. And I don't know, people now, because I think I'm top of mind and people know who I am here, they think of me right away when an opportunity comes up.
So you've established yourself in the community because you've been part of this community for so long that they kind of just start to open up a little bit more.
Yes, right. And I've done lots of stuff for charity and donations and all of that sort of stuff. So sorry, my dog is having a hissy fit out there.
That's okay. They've been a very needy Nelly in our part 2 as well too when it comes to cooking. So don't. We're going to be pretty rehearsed with that.
Okay, good.
So that's amazing. So that would be your greatest accomplishment right there. What would you consider to be an accomplishment you're hoping to achieve as well too?
That I'm hoping to achieve?
Yeah.
Well, I had a solo exhibit during COVID, which is a funny way how it came about because I had applied. I thought if you're an artist that you're supposed to get a show right away. It doesn't happen that way.
No, it never does.
And so eventually I had to get some help to apply to be able to have a show. And she retired, the curator had retired, and I only had met with her once after she agreed to put me in the lineup for a date for the show.
Right.
And at that time, then she retired, and then COVID hit. So there was no curator there for a while, and my show was like COVID started in March, and that show was in June. I hadn't met the curator. They had no idea what I was doing. So it was a little bit of a surprise, and then they moved my show up by 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So it was quite an intensive time for painting because I had it all scheduled out of how many paintings I had to get done every week.
And you really just had to do the crunch time right then and there, right?
Well, and I painted 38 pieces for that show.
Wow.
And I had planned to do 48 actually, but I ran out of time.
Yeah, that's just.
But mine was it was a concept show that I did, and so it was a solo show in 2020. I'm not sure if it's still on the Esplanade. It was at the Esplanade, so our cultural center, right downtown Medicine Hat.
Yeah.
And I was only supposed to have the little gallery. I ended up having the whole entire space.
Wow.
Because some of the shows got canceled during COVID.
Oh, no.
And shipping and like, you know how crazy everything was. I ended up reformatting the show because I had a designer help me and we had laid it out like based on the wall space. And so that turned out to be an amazing show.
Wow.
And I would love to do a show like that again.
Yeah.
So the concept of that show was growing up in the 70s in Medicine Hat on the river flats. And it was based on geographical walks.
Yeah. And
so you could walk from my house to where I went to school, St. Louis School, and it was all the views that you saw. So it was very much what you see. It wasn't manipulated art in any respect. It's what, if you would go down there, that's what you would see. And I had 5 different walks like that. One was downtown, one was walking on North Railway Street. The other one was going down to the park, Lions Park and Strathcona Park. Very similar to Henderson and Lethbridge, right? Old park areas. Yeah. And then I had stories of each place that I painted. And just growing up down there.
Yeah, and just capturing what it used to look like, and wow,
and how life was when you grew up on a kid in an old neighborhood like that, like in Canada, right on the prairies.
Yeah, and then eventually, this wasn't your only show as well, too. You've had the chance to do a few different exhibitions.
Yeah, I've done a few exhibitions. Most of them have been focused about Medicine Hat, homes, families I knew growing up on the river flats. So I'd feature their home or their business. And I always had a story about what I experienced at that location. So it was a very personal show.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Are there any other things or learnings that you're going to be diving into in your next exhibition as well, too? Do you have another one lined up?
No, not something like that. I would like to do something similar. I'll probably do something else in Medicine Hat if I can find an exhibition space. Exhibition space is very limited. Yes. So I would have to maybe rent a building to do something, but we'll see. I am in a show in November with a group of artists, and I would like to do Medicine Hat's known for its trail system. You can go anywhere in Medicine Hat on the trails. I'm not sure if other cities are like that, but I know Medicine Hat's a big thing that they promote. And I would actually like to do a similar exhibition called Walking the Trails. So my previous exhibition was called Walking the Flats.
Ah, I see. So keeping it all kind of in a series as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other show I'd really like to do before I can really say I'm done with this area, and not that I ever will be. I still paint a lot of family homes. I do commissions for them. I still do a lot of businesses. There's still a lot of things that I want to paint and just have that full body of work of where I live in the prairies.
Yeah. So like how exactly would you say in your words, how is your painting served the community here in Medicine Hat? You mentioned that you're able to kind of engage like house paintings as well too for commissions there. Yeah. But like you go through and you've painted a walk in the flats as well too. What does that capture for other people as well too? What do you hope that instills onto other people? Or does it even matter?
Well, in some respects, it doesn't really matter. I did it kind of as a selfish exhibition. Yeah, yeah. And I was very surprised. Like when the exhibition opened during COVID, we were only allowed to have 15 people, right? But it was, even during COVID, it was one of their top selling shows of all since they opened. Wow. So it was pretty great. Here, I'm going to cry. But, it's only what people would say to me once they saw, oh my God, I remember that. Or, yeah, I knew that lady. I knew Mrs. Antonio down on Dominion Street. Yeah. And she was a kind lady. And, like just all of those things. So I think it just brought a lot of memories out for people. And my whole thing was neighborhoods, because during COVID, who did you rely on? Was your neighbor. Yeah. Right? Growing up on the flats, like honestly, it was such a different way of life, and parents were so busy just trying to earn $1 and feed their big families. I'm from a family of 8 kids. We had a huge garden. Everybody had a huge garden like that. And it was, you relied on your neighbors. You know, we were gone all day long. We didn't sit at home and watch TV and play video games or do any of that stuff. You basically had breakfast, booted out the door in the morning. You came home when the sun, you know, in the summer when the sun went down, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So the neighbors in that community were amazing. You knew who to avoid. It wasn't all pretty. You knew who to avoid. You knew who was good. And my whole thing with the show is it was always funny. I always painted the places that I always had lunch or a snack, or I knew that person had good food and I knew that person had good food. So there was a lot to do with that painting of their homes, because that's where I spent a lot of time.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Have you had the chance to experiment in other medias of paint as well too? So we have kind of
oil. I do a little
oil,
not a lot, because that's a whole another learning curve. So as you can see, the way I paint is I paint in layers, and that's the way I learned to paint. And I painted that way naturally even before I took any lessons. So when you're a plein air painter or an oil painter, they're a direct painter, meaning they take the paint off their palette and it goes onto the canvas. There's not too many oil painters that I know that are not direct painters that layer and glaze and do all the things that I do with acrylics. So it's a totally different way of painting.
It's a new way that we're going to experience as well too a little bit later in this episode, because we've done painting, but I think we would kind of describe it as more direct as well too. It wasn't as layered as we're about to find out. So,
and it's a slower way to paint. That's I guess the fallback of it. I can't seem to quite speed it up enough, but whereas oil painting is a little bit faster. So I do go to Calgary's. I have a mentor and I do direct painting with him, and it's so different. I don't think I'll ever be good at doing that, but I enjoy it when I'm there, because it's almost like speed painting. Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
no, that's perfect. So you mentioned that you've had a mentor as well too. Who would you consider as an early mentor in your early career?
I had a couple of people in Medicine Hat. They tried to do an open studio in Medicine Hat, and there was grant funding back then 10 years ago to do that. And there was probably about 8 artists that were signed up for that. And then an artist was paid to mentor a group of students, and that was Gina Lacoste. And she's still an artist in Medicine Hat. She's a Western artist. It's horses, into like the whole country Western sort of living with rodeos and that, like that sort of agricultural community, right? And so she was a really good mentor, and she's a watercolor painter, but you know, I remember she would always talk about grays and neutrals. Well, for the longest time I don't paint with gray. So I layer, and if I want a gray color, you know, maybe now I'll mix a gray because I see the value of it. But when I first started, I thought, oh, gray. Who wants to look at gray? I want color.
I want,
because my stuff is colorful. Not as colorful as it used to be. I mean, I'm toning it down a little bit, but you know, I still love color. That's originally why I wanted to paint, was because I love color.
So you definitely kind of tone things back a little bit as well too. So what would you say that you need more of in your life right now?
More of? Well, I do like the commission work for people. And it's funny, when you talk to other artists, most other artists hate commissions. I love it because I don't have to think about what to paint.
They
tell me what to paint. I have this house, I've got that building, I want this one, this is a retirement gift, this is a birthday gift. And to me, that's powerful, because they're really thinking about a present of what to give them.
Something personalized.
And it's very personal. It's very meaningful. And I really like that connection. So I just did Blues at the Bow. I painted that a couple weeks ago, and the lady that commissioned that was her first job when it was a movie theater.
Wow.
Right? So going back to like that, she's little, I don't even know how old she is. I'm not going to say how old she is, but you know, but it's those sorts of connections, right? And I love hearing the stories of people that, you know, they had this home and they renovated and then they moved here, and you know, that person still, I don't know, I really like that. I really like that aspect of painting. I find that probably the most rewarding thing. I like painting flowers. I love painting flowers. I love painting neighborhoods. I did an exhibition of neighborhoods in Medicine Hat, and I really like that too. But if I find it hard to paint something that I didn't experience. So if I didn't really connect, with growing up in that area. I don't know. It's kind of a strange thing.
It is. It can be. Like we've gotten a variety of different answers as well too, and we still get a lot of value in just getting the perspective from different people as well too.
Yeah.
I think on that piece, when it comes to you've had the chance to do some exhibitions as well too, and we have lots of early career artists looking to try to do that.
Right.
What would you say was your first step into getting into an exhibition?
I did my own.
You did your own.
I did my own,
Yeah.
and it's practice. Right?
And that's the way to get noticed, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I did my own. So I did 4, 5 exhibitions before I landed the Esplanade, and that was just kind of a fluke. But I had to get help to apply for that. So what I did is I painted a scene on Aberdeen, which is an older area in the hill.
Yeah.
And I painted a street scene of, it's the Chocolate Shop. So famous because it's a breakfast diner. It's open 7 days a week. Everybody knows the Chocolate Shop. And I painted that, and I paint on birch cradle boards, and they're quite wide on the sides. My husband builds them for me. Thankfully, he does that.
Yeah.
And then we built a box that went inside, and inside the box, you lift the painting off, and then it had a little box on the inside, and inside was my proposal. So that I did that, and then that's how I got an exhibition.
Well, there you have it right there as well, too.
Yeah.
Looks like we had a bit of Needy Nelly.
Needy Nelly again.
But they're getting a little bit more quiet. That's okay. So one thing I kind of wanted to talk about as well too was that we've had the chance to kind of, you have the chance to send us a quick bio and description as well too, and we kind of pulled apart a few pieces as well too and wanted to talk and delve a little bit more into that piece as well too, just to get to know a little bit more.
I wrote that a while ago, so I hope I still remember what I put in there.
Well, that's okay. So we have living in the prairies has influenced your artistic practice. How would you describe that?
When I was painting that exhibition at the Esplanade, I thought about that a lot, and it's the sky.
Really?
We have no atmosphere here either. So when you look at some art from England, for instance, they have atmosphere. It could be fog, it could be pollution, it could be just the way the environment is. But when I first started painting in this area, we don't have any atmosphere. Like you can go to a top of a hill and see almost all the way to Elkwater, right?
Yeah,
like
that's right.
We don't have that haziness that happens. The only time we get haziness is there's a fire and it smokes over. And I think, wow, that's atmosphere.
Yeah.
But when I was painting for the exhibition at like the Esplanade, that ran through my mind a lot. So my skies are usually teal with a little bit of yellow hint to them because Medicine Hat's very hot. It's semi-arid desert.
That's right.
And so I always think about reflecting that. And so a lot of the things colors choices that I use in my paintings are because of that. We're a hot, warm climate.
Yeah, no, exactly.
With no atmosphere.
That's with no atmosphere as well too. I didn't even think of it that way as well too, but it makes a lot of sense. A lot of places are elevated a lot more.
I've had to learn to add that atmosphere to the paintings and soften things in the distance and not use like the vibrant colors, because to me everything's like in your face here. So I painted that way for so many years. And I'm not saying that's wrong anymore. I know I'm not supposed to technically paint that way, but it's just kind of the way I see things and the way I saw things then. So now I've done a little bit of a modification. I know the golden rule, but you know, it's not the environment we live in.
That's right. Yeah. No, that's lovely. No, thank you for delving into that with us. So we also have kind of in that bio and description, places that connect us as well too. I'm kind of curious to know what places connect you. We talked about when you're talking about the walks in the flats. These were places that you've gone and like had a snack or had some food as well too.
Well, I think the biggest takeaway of that is a neighborhood. It's how a neighborhood functions, right?
Right.
Your neighbors look after you. I mean, you could be terrified of your neighbors, I guess, too. But
of course,
when I grew up, I mean, I only remember the good ones. So so those things connect you, right? How kind somebody is to your mom or dad, or who helps you out when you fell on the street and had to be taken to the hospital, for instance, or broke your leg, or like me tap dancing on top of a car, and then I had to have stitches in my chin.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, because I had just seen one of the movies from the 70s and thought I could do that too.
Yeah.
No, I could not.
All those stories accumulate to a community.
Stories, to me, it's community, it's neighborhood, it's people looking after each other, and that was very much on my mind because my exhibition was during COVID. So
yeah, no, that
but
makes
I
sense.
still strive for that because I think it's important, and you know. Some people don't get attached to a physical space, but I do. Like, you know, I'm attached to my home. Like, we've talked lots about selling, and I can't move from my home.
It's been, I think we talked about this off screen earlier, but 21 years here as well too,
21
right?
years here, but you know, we've got, you know, our kids' names are in the concrete, and you know, we've got, you know, a wall where they stood when they grew up. I don't know. I'm too sentimental that way.
Yeah.
So, but I find other people are as well. There's not too many people that commission a piece of work from me that aren't remembering something about that physical house or space.
That's right. Yeah, your sentimental side of yourself really shows in a lot of your artistry as well too. Like, we got a beautiful example just behind you of one of your artistry pieces, but we talk about a key. We talk about a key being placed into each of these paintings as well too. I found that quite powerful imagery, and also a fun little game to try to find where the key is at as well too.
I call it the Finding Waldo.
Yeah.
So when I first moved into the first studio, it was on Bridge Street, and it's a group of artists that run it. It's called Studio San Paulo. And I rented a room because I tried doing art at home, and back then my kids were still super busy. There was no space for me to do anything in the house.
Yeah.
Right? And so I rented this room, and they were doing a whole bunch of commercial work. And they decided that they were going to change all the doors and the locks. And I think I might have talked about this before.
We did touch on that. Yeah.
And anyways, so I put the key in my paintings as a reflection of really the idea was that a key is an opportunity.
Opens doors.
Opens doors.
Opens doors before they're closed as
and
well
some
too.
people can think of it as the negative way, but I always like to think of like keys as an opportunity for people. So
that's really nice. No, that's good.
That's why I put them in my work.
Yeah.
When people commission a piece, they will find a key. If it's a house they grew up in and they moved, they will find a key from the house, and I put that key in the painting. And if they don't want a key, I still glue a key on the back.
Amazing. Yeah. Just so they have that.
Yes. And it's funny, when I first started doing that, and then I was looking for keys, and then I had to like put a post on Facebook and say, like, nobody knew I was putting the keys in the paintings then. And if I put a post out now, people just drop them off in my mailbox. So it works out good.
Excellent. I was about to say, one of the things, we had a fish scale artist as well too. I was like, where do you get the fish scales? And they had told me, well, you know somebody who fishes. And so I guess I was going to ask, where do you get the keys? And yep, you got to just find people who are looking to get rid of them.
It is kind of, what do you want to call it? A marker for me, or a part of my brand, right? To have
a key signature, one could say.
A key signature, yes. Very good. I'm going to use that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, you have a lot of inspiration coming from the prairies as well too. We've just touched on, but you also travel a lot as well too.
I do travel a lot.
You've gone to Italy a couple times, and we touch on it very briefly in the second part of the cooking piece, but we were going to talk a little bit more about it right now.
Okay.
Tell us about this trip.
So somebody who I really admire from that first location where I had my studio, and her name's Evelyn Kleiss. And she's an older lady, and she was a teacher, and she taught art at one of the high schools. And then throughout all of that, she would take a group of students over to Italy, like to Florence and Venice and to Rome.
Right. And
after she retired, she continued to do that. And one of her trips, she ended up in the region of Umbria and met this chef, Lorenzo. And they were like family, like instant, you know how you meet people and they're like just like family.
Just click, right?
You just click. And then the next year she started taking tour groups over there, like people that she knew from Medicine Hat, and you know, this person would talk and that person would find out, and the next thing you know, she would have a full trip. So she went every 2 years for I don't know how many years, and decided I went with her before, what year was that? 2018?
Okay.
Yeah, so that was the first time that I had went with her. So I kind of did the trip with her and kind of learned the ropes. And connected with Lorenzo, and now she doesn't really want to do that anymore. She's getting, you know, she's in her 80s. So
that's fair.
So I'm kind of took over the reins for her. So I've taken one group and I'm going this fall.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So we do the 8-day tour.
Yep.
And it's like the all-inclusive of Italy.
You're doing painting, you're doing cooking.
I do 2 painting classes. I do an iconography course too. And
Okay.
I do that right off the bat because then people can use I find most people don't or can't use their camera to the full potential that they could.
Mm-hmm.
And then they can use that class skills throughout the whole trip for the week. So we do that, and then we do 2 painting classes, we do 3 cooking classes, and then we tour and visit places along the way.
Of
for
course,
8 days.
yeah, you're going to be there. You might as well see everything as well too.
It's amazing, and the whole trip, the whole week is planned. So
amazing.
And we go to places that you necessarily wouldn't stop and see because we're off the beaten path.
Right.
You need a car to get there.
Would you say that doing painting classes there in Italy, has that kind of inspired anything into your painting now that you've come back?
Well, my goal was always to paint what I photograph over there because it's near and dear to my heart. And I always think some little part of me is Italian. I'm not Italian, but I always think a little part of me is.
Yeah.
And it's spectacular. It is. I mean, I love Europe. I'm a Europe person. And there's just so many nooks and crannies that we don't have here that will make great paintings. So I am going to actually, it's funny, I am going to paint a couple of views of he calls it a farm. Yeah. We would call it an acreage.
An acreage,
a couple of the views of the vineyards and the olive grove and of his farm. And he's going to start to put those in his school, his cooking school.
Wow.
Because he runs a cooking school too.
Yeah. I bet that,
yeah.
Of course.
So, and then we got a couple other plans to do some marketing materials, like some bookmarks for him with the pictures of the farm and just kind of make it fun and kind of I can be included a little bit more so we've got some plans there. So we'll see where that goes. That's, again, an opportunity, right?
Another opportunity.
Because he has people from all over the world that come, and numerous groups come back over and over and over again and tour with him.
And I think from something that I was told as well, too, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know as well to get a lot of these opportunities as well, too.
It's a lot of talking, and it's a lot of putting yourself out there. And, like, doing your own show is not an easy experience. It's a very humbling experience.
I know the feeling.
It's a very humbling experience because you're kind of exposing something intimate about yourself.
Exactly.
You know, and, are people judging you and what do they think? And I don't know, you just can't really go down that road. But it's putting yourself out there, right? And talking to a lot of people. And some opportunities aren't always turn out the greatest, but you learn from them and you move on and you'll know what to do the next time. So.
Excellent. So where is the most awe-inspiring place you've ever visited?
Well, there's a couple. That's kind of a hard question. There's so many. I mean, there's places in Canada. Like one of them is in by Leader, the sand dunes. Have you been there?
I have not. No.
Amazing.
I've been in a few.
So amazing.
Yeah.
We've been there a couple times. And I'd like to go back there. It's probably been, my kids were little when we went, so I'd like to go back. And my family on my dad's side actually grew up in that area.
Right.
So when we go, we like to, I'd like to eventually do an exhibit of some of these small towns that have a hotel and bar.
Yes.
And paint that and then just like be there for a weekend or 3 days and talk to locals. And I don't know, I'd like to do a book or something is my big goal for that.
Exactly. Have high aspirations for everything. I mean, you are working on a website currently as well too, right?
Well, I had a website before and it was on WordPress and it was just too hard for me to manage. And unfortunately the guy passed away that was was helping me out to do it. So if I had to make a change, I made the change and I moved it to Squarespace. But that was a really hard thing because I moved my studio. I had a big studio down in the old industrial area, and I wasn't using it as much because I'm more set up here at home than I was before. Right. And my kids are gone now, so I've got lots of space, as I showed you guys. Yeah. And it is. Okay, I lost my train of thought.
Oh, that's okay.
What was I saying? What's that? Oh, so anyway, when I moved my studio at the beginning of December, like I didn't think anything of it. That was actually pretty emotional because I grew my business in that space.
And
very thankful to the landlord that I had. He's a family friend, and he was very generous with me. And it was actually the Nutters building. So I'm going to say his name, Donald Cranston, because lots of people know him in town, and he's an amazing guy.
Good.
And then at the same time, I had to give up my site. So I had to move it, but not thinking that had 10 years of my life documented, right? So it was really hard.
Yeah. That takes a huge shift.
Yeah, so I lost my studio and I lost my website, so I felt like I was a nomad.
Yeah.
For a while, but it's back. It's back. I've had some help. I've had to hire to get some help to get it done because, even she comments, she goes, "Wow, you have a lot of paintings," and they're not all good paintings, but you know what? It's part of my life and it's part of my journey, and I want it captured somewhere, so it's in my website.
Well, I imagine that time of transition was very challenging, and so one of the questions I have on here is, when life is getting very tough on you, how exactly do you cope?
Well, I have Fuzzy.
Fuzzy?
My dog. Yeah, she's a doodle. And, she's a good stress relief, having a dog. So, when we grew up, they were all farm dogs. Or even though they moved to the city, like they moved from the farm, like many people in Saskatchewan did, moved to 7 Persons and then moved into Medicine Hat. And I never really had the opportunity to be attached to a dog because the dog was like outside. The dogs were never inside dogs. And we had a dog my husband says the kids need a dog, when they're growing up. So we had a beagle, and I could write a book about that beagle. It was definitely a love-hate relationship.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's got that
when
dog.
she passed away, and that was before, it's funny, everything is before and after COVID, right?
I know, right?
Yeah.
It was such a huge chunk.
It is a weird time in our lives, but so when she passed away, I didn't want to have another dog right away. But my husband, with his job, he works like those mega projects. So I needed a dog after a while. Yeah. So I did a lot of research. Definitely did not want a dog that shed. So,
no.
Anyways, she's lovely. So she's turned out to be a really good companion for me.
And a great way to cope.
And a way, And so stress is, I guess I don't sleep if I'm stressed out. So like most people. So it's just normal, but
So how exactly were you able to get over that hump during that time of challenge when you became the nomad after 10 years again?
That was hard. It was hard because it was winter. Well, my sister goes to Mexico every winter. So I booked a trip to go to Mexico. I needed just to, leave
a chance to
Medicine
unplug.
Hat, just to be in the sun for a week and a bit, and came back with a different perspective. So travel is all important for that.
Yeah. And especially being such a person that is very sentimental and painting of places as well too. I find that travel, I'm starting to see a trend here. It's very important when it comes to your art.
Art and travel is really important.
Yeah.
Well, it's the perspective of how people live and the colors and, just because, you're in Mexico and things aren't neat and super tidy doesn't mean that it's dirty, or
of course.
doesn't mean that, there's all sorts of connotations to that. And, it's interesting. So I really enjoyed our trip down there, and I love going to Europe. You asked me about another awe-inspiring place. We went to Spain for 3 weeks.
Ooh.
And I love Spain too.
Yeah.
We did the South Coast.
Of course.
And we went to a place called Mias.
Mias.
And in Mias, it's very old. It looks almost Greek. It's whitewashed buildings. It's small little alleys. I was pretty inspired of that place. That and Ronda.
Yeah.
Ronda was amazing too. So Ronda was getting back to Mias, they had a grotto. I'd never been in a grotto. Do you know what a grotto is?
I have, I think, wrong images inside my brain right now.
Okay, so grotto is like a church or a pilgrimage site that's built in the side of a hill, or like a hill.
Okay,
or it could be in a mountain, or like a true grotto back then was always built in the side of a hill.
Yeah.
And we went to this grotto in Mias, and it's always it seems like it's always in a beautiful park, and at the end there's a grotto. You didn't have to pay to get in, and the floor is like this because it's still like dirt, and it's just worn from hundreds of years of people walking on it. And the pews are all over the place. It was kind of weird when I first walked in there. My husband didn't go in for some reason. I had the weirdest feeling in there. It was strange.
I find it so, I can get the sense of like other presences or what I should clarify in saying, just the fact of walking on floors that have been walked on for centuries gives you another feeling to time and just
well, and there was something to that place because they had this doll. Like, it sounds so weird when I talk about it, but they had this doll and it was at the end. So the place isn't very big. Like, it might have been like my dining room and my hallway. That's how big the little, I'm going to say it wasn't a church. It was like inside the cavern, but then they had this altarpiece that was maybe the whole side of this wall. It was probably double this.
Yeah.
And it was all in gold. And it was just so strange because it was so different than the floor and the pews when you walked in where everything was dirt. And then there's this gold altarpiece with this doll in it. And the doll was probably about this big, had blonde hair, and they had it all decorated up. And they changed the decorations on it all the time. But wherever you moved in there, the doll was following you with her eyes. I was creeped right out. Like it was a very strange experience.
A very strange experience.
And then you go down this little alley like that they had that goes in the back.
Yeah.
And there was all of the wheelchairs and the stuff that people, like, they were miraculously healed and all these things were laying all over the place. It was the weirdest experience, but I was glad I went in.
Yeah,
and
these experiences
my
you
husband
remember.
says, "Why are you in there so long?" I said, "Well, I was both fascinated and creeped out all at the same time."
That's amazing.
But those are the things that you will never experience here.
Yeah, and those are the things that you remember as well too.
Oh yeah.
And bring into and just give you that new refreshing feeling as well too.
Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. I'm super excited to kind of just dive into the next few pieces as well too. So of painting and of cooking as well too that we have planned later in the edit as well too.
Right.
But so where can we expect your next work?
So I'm going to do a show here with a group of artists, hopefully in November.
Yes.
We're going to do a pop-up, what's called a pop-up show. So we're going to rent a space and do our own show. So I'm looking forward to that. That's in November. And I'd like to apply for a couple grants and see if I couldn't get a grant to do one of those exhibitions. So walking the trails I've always wanted to paint Cypress Hills Provincial Park.
And all this we can kind of get updates on your social media, on your website. There we go.
Social media, Instagram, Facebook. I'm on everything. Google, LinkedIn.
Just Theresa Eisenbarth.
Just Theresa Eisenbarth. I should come up. I post enough that I should come up.
Okay.
And then of course my website, I do updates for events on there, and people can go in there and read about my key and some of my stories and
excellent.
See my work.
And get to know more about you as well too. I thank you again so much for your time and your energy and getting into this. I'm super excited to jump more into it later in the edit. But for that's everything. Do you have any final thoughts? Share to the viewers as well?
Yeah, I do. I think people when they meet you and they think that you're an art, well, then they know that you're an artist. But you know, artists can't survive unless people support them. So, and it doesn't have to be a painting. It could be a print. It could be cards. It could be giving them an opportunity. That's kind of one thing I've really noticed during again COVID. Yeah, I had so many fantastic people that supported me and bought things, and you know, because like any business, you can't. It is a business. Yeah. You can't survive unless people reach out to you and collaborate or partner, or there's all sorts of opportunities to do with artists, even in Lethbridge and Medicine Hat and Calgary and Edmonton and wherever.
You're there to serve the community, and as long as the community is willing to engage in that service,
because that keeps us painting.
Of course. Well, thank you again so much for letting us into your home, into your thoughts, into your head as well too. It's been very great.
It's been lots of fun.
But that's all the time that we have as well too, folks. You're going to catch us a little bit more into the next couple edits as well too. That's it. That's all. This has been the Windy City's Finest. I'm Clark. He's Perry, and this has been Theresa Eisenbarth as well too.
Hi, bye.
See you later, all.
It's Clark and Perry on the case. Clark and Perry, do what it takes. Clark and Perry, investigate.
The activities and interests of local artists in the Windy City's Finest throughout both Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, Alberta. Available on TELUS, Optic TV, On Demand, VidFlex, YouTube, and more for limited time only. Terms and conditions apply.